shop inside of Port Antonio, right? And it's on Harbor Street. It's a nice place. You can check them out. All right. Good morning, Mr. Coulson. How you doing, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right. I went to a event and I saw you, and it just dawned upon me to say, no, you know a lot. And I saw your wife after that, and I said to her, you know, I saw your husband and he was saying some stuff, and I did. She said, that man studies history. So here we have you in the studio this morning. And I don't know if it's the right word to call you a historian. A historian.
Yes, you could, because I just want to tell you that my favorite program, my favorite lessons in school was geography. And I put geography and history together. Geography is new history, and history is old geography.
All right, we want to start off by some things that Portlanders out there, or the entire Jamaica, or even the world, they are not aware of. And one thing I'm going to ask you, and then you can continue the rest. Tell us a little bit of the history that you have for us this morning. Seaman's Valley, how it got the name?
Seaman's Valley, there was a club there originally. When the banana business in Jamaica were run by the Western Steamship Company, and that's long before United Fruit Company, a ship would take up as long as 2 weeks to get loaded. And up at this crossroad between Moortown and the road to Millbank, there was a big club there. The seamen from these ships would go up there, spend a week, 2 weeks, club, dance, drink, girls, etc., etc. And they would go rafting on that river, which is Downs River, from there to Berrydale. And they could only go rafting on Sundays and on bank holidays. And those rafts were called bateau because they have no seats.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Give us some of the history that you have for us this morning, because you know that it's Independence Week, and come tomorrow it's Independence Day and all that. So a lot that Jamaicans don't know, and I find it great in you that you have it.
Yes, well, even to continue on that same trend that I started here a while ago, is that these names from Port Antonio Crossroad, which everybody knows, Oliver Park Crossroad, it was named from the Maroons. The Maroons of Moortown were the first Maroons, the first Maroon town in Jamaica. And when war were declared by the British against the Maroons were already coming out of the hills of Moortown. So, Crossroads was where they crossed off this road that the Maroons were not supposed to pass there to come nearer to the ocean, to the sea. So there was like water there. They were walking down the road with their battle, with their with their armory that they have, which was machete, and of course machete and pieces of wood, remembering that they were told, this is your cross line, this is where you, nothing beyond this line. But they were still marching down. And they came finally with the British soldiers at breastworks. They came abreast with them at breastworks. And of course, the British have guns and ammunition, and the Maroons have to retreat. And if you know the road well from Port Antonio, 15 miles to the road, then in Millbank, you will know that retreat is beyond breastworks.
So that's how the name Retreat in
Yes.
that era got the name.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I love that. I love that, and I hope people listening.
Yes.
What about what about the histories of Boundbrook, where Styles FM is located?
Bonebrook is an old part of what I would describe as Isleworth. And this Isleworth goes right across. Remembering that at one time there were like 4 families that owned the entire parish. And we go right over there's a village on top of the hill they used to call Earmount, over to Bonebrook. And all this is Isleworth. And Bonebrook was part of what was divided hence land settlement. This was
Mhm.
after in the later years that it was part of Bonebrook land settlement.
So we always hear people talking about this thing about folly. We just moving on. We hear people talking about folly and how some of the richest set of people in the world used to come a folly and all that.
Yes. Folly, the name Folly comes from Mitchell, Sir Alfred Mitchell. Alfred Mitchell originally was a man who come into Port Antonio somewhere in about 1938.
Hmm.
And he loved the place tremendously, what he saw there. So he said, if I ever get rich, the story of Alfred Mitchell, I'm going to come back here to build a house here. The book said that he went away. He went back to America and joined the American Navy
Hmm.
and came back here in 1912. He was such in great hurry to build this great big 80 apartment building that he used sea water and sea sand to make the concrete to put up that great Mitchell Folly.
Hmm.
He went back to America and was married to one of the richest family in America, even today. And they were, I forget the name, I'll tell you in a little while.
Yeah, man, no problem, no problem.
Okay. And so he built that building. He make up a watching house. He make up a baker shop. He was married to one of the Tiffany's. He went back to America and married to a Tiffany.
Okay.
Yes. And he came back, and as they walk in, the book says, the lady says, well, I'm not going to go inside that building. I cannot, I'm afraid of it.
Hmm.
And as they walk through, the book said he tried to persuade her, in quotation marks. So I don't know exactly in what way he tried to persuade her.
Okay.
It could well be a beating, I don't know. But,
Right.
but as he walked through, one column of the wall collapsed in front of them.
Wow.
And they both ran away, and none of them came back.
Hmm.
So folly is always used for baptism by churches and for picnic and so on and so on. Hence, Mitchell's Folly.
Mitchell's Folly. So a lot of people hear about folly. So you can say that, all right, I learned something about it. But we noticed that there's a lot of places in Jamaica that is so rich in heritage. When we look at the place that this place that they talk that they haunted by ghosts somewhere down on the north coast area. I'm trying to remember the name of the place. Wow, it just jumped out of me like that. But it's somewhere in Senton, Falmouth, somewhere there. The haunted house that they used to talk about that they're afraid of, and they have this one. They have another place in Moortown now where they used to talk about this thing about Nanny being the type of person that she catch a shot. But I know nothing like that. It was something strange, but people just bring up them thing with a difference.
I don't want to I don't want to swear on this, but what I know, because I have actually been on the spot,
Okay.
as you drive up from Port Antonio, going towards Moortown, there's a little river, a little spring, Fellowship. Of course, that's where the Maroons celebrate, retreat Fellowship, and we go up towards Windsor, where the war was finally won. There's a hill across there they call Watch Hill, and the one behind it is called Pumpkin Hill. And if you if you go up to Watch Hill, which I have done as a boy, there's a big ball that is planted on top of that hill. And when that hill is burnt down, because there's flintstones or something there which
Okay.
that grass catch fire from time to time, that big ball is still planted there. And that was a mark for Nanny. And that's where they said she used her bottom to catch the bullet, and she could stay there and spy all that was happening along that coast.
All right. Bowden. What was so great about this place known as Bowden?
I don't know much about Bowden. All I know is that it's one of 3 ports that used to ship bananas from Jamaica. Bowden, Bonebrook, and Orocobesa.
You know anything about Rosal? Because that's what I was trying.
Oh
to
yes.
Rosal.
Rosal is still there now.
Mm-hmm.
As a boy, when I used to go to Montego Bay quite often and so on, to the right, where the Rosal Hotel is, as you pass it coming up the road like you're going towards Montego Bay.
Mm-hmm.
There's 5 palm trees. 4 is planted in a cluster, and 1 is beyond.
Mm-hmm.
And I have gone up to Rosal taking visitors up there to look,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a room that is locked, and nobody was allowed to go into that room. And it is said that that is where Annie Palmer would carry, she killed 4 husbands and take them underground. There's a road that goes under the ground from up by the Great House right out to where those palm trees are.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that is planted by itself, that's her grave. She was killed by the last husband.
Okay, so the last husband killed her, and so, but it is said back then. I don't know if it is said now that it's haunted.
Well, if so much things happen there, it could be haunted. But one is only going by what's there now, that the facts are there. Annie Palmer, that Annie Palmer, because there was 2 of them.
2 Annie Palmer?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
One died at 28. The one that used to change and ride this black horse with her black suit, she was very evil. But there was a good Annie Palmer.
No, it's the first I hearing this. It's the first I hearing this one.
There was a good Annie Palmer who lived for years.
Mm-hmm.
And she was considered a good woman, you know. She tried to help the people of Rosal.
Okay.
So I don't know very much about that one, but the bad one would change on a sudden, but she was striking good looking. She was a very pretty young lady.
So you're saying back in those days, anybody would fall for her because she is such a beauty.
Yes.
All right, let's look at Navy Island, the whole history behind Navy Island here in Port Antonio, and Errol Flynn.
Navy Island is there. I know it as Navy Island.
Mm-hmm.
I was born very close to where the rafting beach is, up in Berrydale. I know Errol Flynn just like how I know you. I've seen him go rafting on the Rio Grande 14 consecutive days. He loved the river.
Mm-hmm.
And he would always, he was the man who could jump in the water with a knife and catch a fish. He was very smart. He have a yacht park out there they call it Zaka. And of course his second was Polo. That was the name of his second.
Mm-hmm.
Errol Flynn came here, and the first thing he did was to buy the Titchfield Hotel. He next by Navy Island. And the third place he bought is where his late wife were living up in Castle.
Okay.
There. So Errol Flynn, he sponsored a rafting race on the river. He was the man, he didn't organize rafting, but he promoted.
Okay.
So every year from in the 50s, people would raft down for the Errol Flynn's Cup. Very important. He used to raft down once a year. Each raft would start 3 minutes after the first one. So it's not the first raft that gets to St. Margaret's Bay with the winner. It's the one that takes less time.
Oh.
Yes.
So we are so rich with heritage and culture. But you know, before we ask you anything that you want to add to let people know, let's look at this big hotel in Port Antonio that got burned down, Titchfield Hotel.
Titchfield Hotel, yes. It's the first and only hotel in Port Antonio. It was the first hotel to be built in Jamaica, except for Myrtle Bank, which was done by Harbour Street in Kingston.
Mm-hmm.
Titchfield Hotel was there before Tower Isle, because it was built to accommodate the banana people, not as a hotel. It's a Titchfield Great House. It was later turned into the hotel. Flynn bought that, but he sold it. He sold it to the Rand Corporation.
Okay.
From Miami. And of course I traveled to England in 1961, and when I left here, Rand were the owner of the Jamaica, of the Titchfield Hotel.
What year was it burned?
It was burned somewhere, I-61, somewhere in about 64, 65.
Mm-hmm. All right, anything that you want to add finally before we close off from this part of the show?
Yes, well, you know, Port Antonio have the greatest history in the world. So many things that happened to Jamaica that of course started in Port Antonio. The first place to accommodate visitors. And if you notice, I didn't call them tourists.
Mm-hmm.
For the tourist season in Jamaica started in 1899.
Okay.
But visitors were coming here before that, long before that. And Port Antonio and the Navy Island were all part of this consortium.
Mhm.
There's so much history, old history, new history about Port Antonio. Lovely place.
And you know, one of the thing we always hear people saying was the train, and you used to take a certain amount of time to drive on the train, like to go Kingston, because
Yes.
if the train leave here like
6 o'clock in the morning.
what time you reach Kingston?
Reach Kingston about 10, 11 o'clock.
Wow, and that's a long drive.
And they have what they call sidings.
Hmm.
Like one siding would be Norwich. So they are picking up the farmers not only at the stations like Hope Bay, St. Margaret's Bay, and Buff Bay. They are also stopping at sidings
Hmm.
and picking up the people and taking them to Spanish Town, right down to the center of Kingston.
All right, thank you very much, Sir Coulson, and I hope people learn a lot. And you know, we have to ask you to come again somewhere down the road, because I know this is just a tip
Yes,
from
yes,
from
yes.
your memory. This is just
Yeah,
a
just
tip.
a tip.
And I know you know a lot. I know you know a lot, because based upon what I heard, yeah, trust me. I would just want to say again, special thanks to Miss Coulson from the Port Antonio School Shop. All right, and we gotta go straight into old time Jamaica, because we're still not going to leave out that part. And Mr. Coulson, before we go, what makes you positive?
I've got books that give me ideas, you know. Like, for instance, I live in Drapers.
Mm-hmm.
The name wasn't just Drapers. It didn't come from just somebody saying it's Drapers. Drapers, the first Chinese that come into Jamaica to help the slave trade, built a factory in Drapers. They were doing drapery. They were the first people who started a drapery business. And if you remember that the first governor of Jamaica, the first cruel man, Sir Henry Morgan, he was captured in Drapers in somewhere about 1792. He was deported to was sent to Kingston to be tried, but he was great friend of King Charles I, so they sent him back to England. King Charles gave him a knighthood in 1793 and sent him back to Jamaica as the first governor of Jamaica.
Wow.
So you see what the name Drapers is doing to us.
All right, you know what? So much, so much. We could go on and on and on. Mr. Coulson, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
We got to a break, and we will